If there's a type of game I love, it's Soulsborne games and Soulslikes. Despite how terribly difficult and terribly bad at them I am, the ever-present feeling of danger and triumph over adversity keeps me coming back forever, despite the fact that usually I don't always finish these games. But the music is one part of these games that is worth experiencing time and time again. So today we're going to be listening to and talking about music from Souls-like, Metroidvania, and other games that feature Souls-like qualities. I'm going to stretch this line a little bit because there's so much good music and challenging and difficult boss fights and battles. Let's dive in, shall we? First up, we're going to listen to Odor from Thymesia, which I've never heard of before, but let's listen to it. Shockingly playful, isn't that? It's a bit of a waltz, a bit of a dance. Some call and response there. That's really fun, back and forth. Fun percussion instruments with that. Sounds like tambourine in there. This sort of virtuosic violin line over top as well is interesting. Check it out. And the false ending, interesting. Oh, I like the piano fade out with the French horn in the back. Nice ending. Yeah, Thymesia. Okay, that's interesting. This gives me a real like Carnivale vibe to it. I don't know who Odor is, but obviously this dance-like thing is a bit playful, a bit malicious. I don't think it's necessarily evil, but it certainly is like a bit of a court jester type sound. I think it's really interesting to have that really powerful chorus in there that represents the danger, while we're having this waltz-like movement that really feels like a carnival, and it really does feel like it has this almost a bounding energy, which you can really hear in the music, especially with how it lilts and wilts. And I enjoyed the middle section there, like I mentioned with the call and response. I think that added a little bit of that echo, which I think fueled the feeling of playfulness. But in general, this didn't feel like it was an altogether dangerous fight, more just like a very challenging battle against someone that could outwit us and outsmart us if we aren't too careful. You know what I mean? So that was really cool to listen to. Next up is a game I recently picked up called 9 Souls. It is a profoundly wonderful experience and so far extremely intriguing, both from its art style perspective and also from its music and combat. This is Crossing Blades from 9 Souls. Let's listen. Oh, I love this synth sound already. Incredible vocals. Hell yeah. Integrating a authentic folk song sound, chant-like quality with EDM is cool. Jump. Man, these bells. And the vocals are in unison with the movement. Whoa. I love how we never lose sight of the forward momentum in that piece. That is so satisfying to listen to because it constantly keeps us moving forward on the edge of our seat. The vocal chant is terrific. The accented sort of percussion and twinkling bells that we hear, and also the way that we sort of integrate a more natural folk element to that, a very organic soundscape with that chant was terrific. I also really appreciated the EDM itself, and again, I find that the pace of that piece was very frenetic and it keeps you on the edge of your seat, and it's really intriguing. I felt like I could have enjoyed a little bit more variety in that particular piece, but Nine Souls is a beautiful experience, and I've been really enjoying slowly making my way through that, and starting it has been really rewarding. It's very hard. It's one that you shouldn't miss if you like this is genre or adjacent genre. And wow, what a fantastic soundtrack. There's a lot more to listen to with that for sure. Next up, I want to go to Mantis Lords. I want to stay in this sort of Metroidvania Souls-like area and check out the Mantis Lords from Hollow Knight. Really nice doubling here, actually, with the cello and the harpsichord strings. A little bit of offbeat confusion there. You know, you can't undersell and understate the influence that classical Baroque and classical music itself, the time period, not the overarching idea, influences Hollow Knight's soundtrack, and Mantis Lords here especially is no exception. The harpsichord we rarely hear outside of the Baroque time period. Hollow Knight was the first game that I played after experiencing a lot of the Dark Souls experiences that I felt was the truest of a Souls-like, but in a 2D form. I know that there are other games like Salt and Sanctuary, which we'll hear later in this episode, and a few others others that are similar in nature and came out around, later on after Hollow Knight. But Hollow Knight really cemented itself for me in that idea of using the formula and using music to create a sense of distress and a sense of agitation. It does so in many different ways, and there's a bunch of different tracks that use this. There's also City of Tears, I believe that's what it's called. Yeah, City of Tears, which does give me some Majula vibes. And I think that this soundtrack is so expertly created and crafted around the idea of really telling a story through its music. That's ultimately what the goal of music is to make us feel and connect to this world and these characters. It's funny because when I was playing Bloodborne for the first time and I was I was fighting against Margot's wet nurse, what's interesting to me is that actually the music, I had the music off because I was on the phone and I beat Margot's wet nurse in the first try. Not to say that's a difficult boss fight, but I feel like a lot of these tracks in these Souls games are really, really essential to the overall feeling of stress and discomfort that we hear when we're experiencing that fight. And so turning off the music was really interesting because I ended up like beating it the first go, and I was like, oh, that was easy. It's probably because the music was off. And so music is such an important part of setting the atmosphere and setting the challenge. And I love when bosses have themes because I think that those themes further accent and further enhance the experience of the combat and also the characterization. It's a really cool thing that I think FromSoft, Soulsborne, Metroidvania games with a similar style really lean in and lean on, and it's quite cool. Let's check out Lies of P, Feel. I know that I haven't covered a lot of Lies of P, but honestly, I'm just bitter because of how hard it was, and I never got past the boss after the King of Puppets, so I just put it down. But Feel was the first track I heard from this game that really left me with my jaw on the floor.
Close your eyes, come to me, feel alright.
The vocals here are just so pure, very simple. Classic ballad style, a bit of call and response between the piano and the vocals and the guitar. Wonderful jazz with this muted trumpet and the distant sound quality there really makes us feel like really is coming from a record player. It's a type of sound that we don't really get that often. And it's a really honest sound and musical experience, I think. Such beautiful jazz here with the piano taking over now. Hanging on an emotional thread here, which is really exceptional. Isn't it interesting how different this feels with the piano in that repetitive pattern, ostinato pattern?
Make Close your eyes, come to me. Close your
You know, it's such a vibe. It's really hard to pin down what makes that song so incredibly special. But if I were to guess, I would say a couple different things. First of all, the muffled sound is really interesting because it places us in a time that doesn't feel like it's right now. There's the soundscape there of that gramophone. It feels old. It feels like it's from the 1920s. That's one part. Second part is the absolutely deliciously performed and sung jazz vocals, mixed with this very warm, smoky sound from this singer, which is really, really lovely. And then on top of that, we also naturally just have the trio there. We have the piano, the trumpet, and I think the drums. But it's very classic in its jazz style, which is so cool. There's a warmth in that as well. And I think that given the situation around Lies of P, I also think that this piece, as you put it on in the Hotel Krat, I think it has a really relaxing soundscape that makes us feel calm. And that's a contextual thing, but even outside of it, it's just like a lovely piece of music, isn't it? I mean, it's so hard. We could go into it and explain all the details about what makes it so special and what I hear and what you hear, but the end of the line, the final thoughts on that is that it's just sublimely beautiful. And it's not something that's very common in Souls-like games. And, Lies of P is certainly the closest we'll get to a Bloodborne 2. But I do think that it has achieved and does achieve its goal exceedingly well, and it stands on its own as a unique and wonderful experience, despite the fact that I didn't finish it because I don't have the patience. Next up is a game that recently came out, and that's Enotria: The Last Song. Now, of course, this is an Italian Souls-like, which of course I was thrilled to see, and this is based around the idea of the Commedia dell'arte. The Commedia dell'arte was a style of performance in Italy based around trope classic characters like Arlecchino, Pantalone, Brighella. These are caricatures, these are stereotypes, these are quintessential characters. People would put on a mask and then they would perform as this character was, the tropes of this character. It's a really interesting concept and one that I've never really seen fleshed out of Genshin Impact. And Genshin Impact is one of the few games that has really embraced the Commedia dell'arte characters. Obviously, the Harbingers, the Fatui Harbingers in that game, the main villains are all based off of the Commedia dell'arte characters. So it was really nice to see some of these characters in here as well. And interestingly enough, the piece that I'm playing for you now, which is basically a tarantella, is also used for a character named Zanni. Zanni was actually another one of the characters of the Commedia dell'arte troops. This character was best known for being an astute servant and a trickster, which is really, really interesting. Commedia dell'arte, again, just to clarify, was an early form of professional theater originated from Italy that was popular throughout Europe in the 16th and 18th centuries. And like I mentioned, it was characterized by masked types. Basically, they were essentially sketches or improvised scenarios. Characters' entrances and exits were scripted, but then whatever happened in between that was completely up to the situation and up to the actors on tour and performing. It's really interesting. So to see this, to hear this, I feel a great sense of pride in my Italian heritage. Check this out. This is a traditional tarantella. Kind of stuff I used to sing, honestly. Music you hear in Italy all the time, but with a crazy chorus in the background. I love how this chant is just sort of doubling with the rest of it. You know, what I love about this particular theme is how closely connected it is to a classic tarantella. Just for your own sake, check this out though. Do you hear how closely related that is to a classic Italian folk song? I mean, the Italian folk dance and the Italian musical tradition is huge, and it spans way beyond classical symphonic writing or classical operatic writing. There's a lot of folk music in spread and across Italy's history. And I think it's really, really just incredible to hear that in a modern game that came out in the year 2024. It's wonderful when games like Enotria or Lies of P come out and they showcase new ideas and cultures, and it's not just your medieval thing that you see in the Dark Souls series or obviously even Victorian whatever in Bloodborne. And there's an essence here of real interest and beauty when it comes to exploring culture. And I think that Lies of P and Enotria do such good jobs. Enotria has some problems. I would definitely say, like, I'm giving it a little bit of time to let it simmer a little bit, but it's definitely a game that I want to come back to because the ideas are really unique. And the visuals it's a very beautiful game. And I really am just immensely proud to see Enotria highlight Italian culture as much as it does. It's really awesome. Anyway, that's enough waxing poetic about being Italian. Let's go back to the idea of Metroidvanias and Souls-like having similarities in terms of their boss design, in terms of their music. And Salt and Sanctuary is one that I feel closely resembles the Dark Souls formula, but in obviously a 2D format. This is the Nameless God from Salt and Sanctuary. Interesting sustain in here. Feels like a heartbeat almost, doesn't it? Interesting piano in the background too. Huh. That's quite beautiful. You know, one of the things that I find really appealing about that is the sense of desperation and the sense of loss that it really puts us, like, our backs are against the wall. There's a real desperate quality in there. I think, and part of that is both to its hindrance and to its benefit. One of the things that I found interesting about this piece was the amount of repetition that it had. Obviously, I feel like we're like broken. The nameless God, there's almost a sense of looking at this thing and feeling a sense of grandeur, but also recognizing that perhaps the thing that it almost feels like it wasn't meant to be, or the thing that this thing shouldn't exist. It's almost like it wasn't what we expected it to be, and we had our hopes dashed. And so there's a sense of desperation, and there's quite a bit of antagonism and push and pull, and a ton of repetition, which I think both helps it and hinders it, because it does get very repetitive and a bit almost boring. It's not boring, but it just starts to sound the same. Whereas what's really interesting about that is that melody is actually really powerful the more you listen to it. Da, 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 da. What is that? That's just descending notes. That's it. And it just resets. And then underneath you also have this pedal tone where you're sustaining a bo. That really helps to buoy the top notes as they descend down. And then you get the accents of the piano, which are also adding to the sense of betrayal or the sense of loss. So it's not to say that I'm dismissing it, but it was a really interesting piece. And again, I mean, it does make me want to see what the Nameless God is and what the experience is like in the game, because of how intensely oppressive it sounds. And it makes you feel. Let's listen to Humanity from Code Vein. Goshina is I love the doubling with the chorus. Feels like a military chant. Da, 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 Whoa. That's so beautiful. That's fantastic. Shut up, shut up. Da, 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 da. Shut da, 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 shut up, shut up. You know, every time I hear a track from Code Vein, it just makes me want to play the game. And I know that it has its issues, and I know that people lovingly, I guess, call it anime Dark Souls. But there's something about this music and Goshina's style itself that is so unique and so fresh. It's a very open sound. It's a very bright. It just feels very full. It just never really gets repetitive or boring to me. Goshina's music in general, I'm a big fan of. And Code Vein has that in spades. I mean, Memory of the Lost, this particular piece really feels like it's about like the willingness to fight a battle and to come out the other side triumphant. It feels like rallying the troops. Of course, the track is called Humanity, so I think like we are the last vestige of it, and we will do whatever it takes to win this battle. I would be amazed if this was a boss theme. It does feel like it's a personal choice for us to stand up and say, you know what, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do it right and take care of business. And that really comes across to me. And it's also just really genuinely an interesting and lovely piece. And this is not the only piece in this game that is profound. I mean, it's a great soundtrack and very, very, very interesting. So now I need to go play it, and I'm kind of annoyed because I don't have time. I'd like to listen to Rob Westwood here and Remnant 2's Shahala Guardian of Nerud Spectral version. I listened to this not too long ago on Patreon, and this is just crazy good. The ultimate mix of orchestral and synthetic. It's really neat. When it starts, you don't really know where we're going to end up, too, which is great. I love the hope in this sound, you know? It almost doesn't feel like a boss theme. It feels like a piece of self-expression. It's fascinating. Love this crunch in here as well. The otherworldliness of this like sound quality in here as well. I just love that melody line too that we just heard. It's a profoundly good piece, and honestly, the melody in there is so subtle and so effective. Yada, 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 yada. The thing is, this is the second phase of this Shahala Guardian of Nerud piece, and what I love about it is that you do get the sense that we're in a spectral dimension. You do get the sense that we're in a place that feels so huge, almost like a dome of the universe, if you will. you do get the sense that we're dealing with almost like a celestial being of godliness. And you also get the sense that this is a fight that is absolutely desperate, but it doesn't have that like desperate dissonance per se. It really is forward moving, which that's not uncommon for a boss theme, but we're also getting a soundscape that feels almost like it's embracing us, especially with the soprano singer in there. There's almost like a gentility in it that is very, very peaceful, even though it feels like a fight to the death at the same time. And that juxtaposition is really interesting and fun to me because there's so much variety that you could sit down with this piece for 5 hours, and every time you listen to it, you'll come away with some new, fresh take on it. And I think that that's the sign of something that's really well composed, because it doesn't just like land in one note. There's quite a bit of variation within it, and I think that's really exciting and fun. Next up, I want to check out Magista, Tyrant of Slacktide from Another Crab's Treasure, because I want something light. Wow. Damn, that goes unreasonably hard. Fun snare drums in the back like that. This organ. Why is this such a mood? Whoa. Bop, bop. A little syncopation there. Bop, 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 bop. Nice twist. It's cool that we had the horns in there kind of pushing through. Love the horns. I really think that the horns ultimately represent some sort of, now it's called the Tyrant of Slacktide. So in my mind, I kind of picture like a king or a queen or someone in a royal position, or certainly a leader of something, where the horns especially, there's a bit of like uppityness, a bit of regality, but what an interesting soundscape. And also what I think is really cool about this particular piece, it was unexpected. The soundscape was not at all what I was expecting when I knew that it would be bright, but I thought it would be a little bit more playful than what it was. But the strength actually comes in with the snare drums and also this really wonderful electronic EDM soundscape that really causes us to feel this feeling of like, oh damn, okay, I gotta watch my back a little bit here because this could go badly. And that really is pervasive throughout, and it's just like kind of fun. It does still amp up the stakes even though we have this bright world around us. And again, we're looking at Souls-like games. We're not looking at, your quintessential Dark Souls soundscape or Elden Ring soundscape or Sekiro or any of that, which has this very heavy veneer over top of it. This is a really interesting and new way to listen to Souls-like music, and I think that is really special. Another Crab's Treasure is really one that I should sit down with, especially as a fan of the genre. Last, I want to finish up with Nioh. Now, I had a mental breakdown when I was playing Nioh, so it's only appropriate that I would play the Death soundtrack, Freed from This Mortal Coil. I remember I had a breakdown trying to make Hollandaise because I was trying to fight a giant cat, and it was terrible. And I've never finished Nioh, and I never will. And I remember just being so angry at the hollandaise sauce I was trying to make. And so I have like very fond memories of Nioh, but I also hate it immensely. So I'm really looking forward to listening to this. Ah yes, I've heard this before. It is beautiful though, isn't it? Ba ba ba. Ba ba ba. Da da da. Da da da. It's honestly really profoundly interesting, and I think it's a really good reset. If only I ever took a break while playing this game. There's a real sound quality in there, obviously, of rest, which is really nice. And I think the harp and then the flute really do a great job of centering, and it almost feels like a meditative experience where you can go in and sit down and really reflect on the experience and why you died potentially and how to get started again. It's obviously a bit somber. The ostinato and the harp is really, really pervasive throughout, very, very serene. The flute on top, ba 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 da, ba ba ba, is very gentle, almost like a caress or a hey, you'll get it next time. There's a bit of an inspirational sound to it, even though the overall emphasis on it is like, hey, all right, you died. Like it's a failure technically. But in the case of the music, it's actually quite supportive, which is nice. We don't always get support in these games, and so to feel it musically is wonderfully charming. That doesn't mean I'll ever pick it up again, but yeah, it was fun. With that, there are so many more Souls-like games to talk about musically. The Jedi series from Respawn, many other Metroidvania Souls-like games that I didn't get to, like Grime or Death's Gambit. There's also really interesting tracks from other Souls-likes like Lords of the Fallen that I haven't looked at yet and I'd like to listen to. But yeah, in any case, thanks a ton, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this and stay tuned for more. Let me know in the comments below what other Souls-like music should be featured, and I'll make sure to try to get to it next time. Thanks a ton, everybody. I'll see you later. Bye.